Are you ready to rewind? Take a nostalgia-filled ride back to a simpler time. It's Acid Wash Memories, a retro pop culture celebration. And now your hosts, Joe Murata and Michael Quinn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 21 of Acid Wash Memories, a retro pop culture celebration. Today, we're talking about casual dining. My name is Joe Murata, and I am joined, of course, by Michael Quinn. How you doing there, Michael?
Hi, Diners Club member Michael Quinn.
The original Diners Club member, Michael Quinn.
Yes, that's me.
We're talking all about food here, but before we do that, here's some food for your thoughts, folks. If this is your first time with us here, we do have a different topic every week, and you could probably find something that you might like in the archives. So just check us out, subscribe if you're not put off yet. We'd really appreciate that. You can also follow us on Twitter at AWM Podcast. That's AWM Podcast on Twitter. And if you have a Facebook, we have a group there where we talk about not only the weekly topic of the show, but all sorts of retro
dining menus
topics. Yes, dining menus
of yore.
Yeah, appetizers of yore.
Yes. Anything with yore in it, we're probably involved.
Yeah, and guess what? You're invited to our group. Ha!
Stop.
You can join it. Acid Wash Memories on Facebook. We talk about old things. That's what this is. This show is a retro pop culture celebration, not meant to be dramatic.
The oldest things.
Yes, we talk about very old things, you know, like when you push a hoop with a stick.
The telephone.
Yeah, the telephone, the telegram.
Yeah.
The telegraph.
We got it all covered here.
And tell your friends. Anyway, thank you guys for being with us here. Talking about casual dining. The casual dining restaurant industry still exists to this day.
But what do you mean by casual dining, Joe?
Well, Quinn, I think the best thing to do is to start with this. What is going out to eat?
Well, instead of having somebody in your household or you yourself cook it, you have somebody else cook it and also bring it to your table on top of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Drinks too?
Yeah, drinks. Bring it the whole. It's full service, Joe.
You get a fork and a knife and everything?
Oh yeah, it's all there.
You have to pay for it though.
Oh, of course.
Just
I mean,
double-checking.
it's not like people do this for free.
Right, okay, just making sure here.
Have you tried the lasagna? It's my favorite.
Now, obviously, you guys know what it is to go out to eat. That's called a joke that we just made.
Yeah, ha ha ha.
You know, if you've ever been out to eat, you've probably been to a casual dining restaurant. And, well, what is that? What is that experience? Because I got to say, Quinn, as a kid, when you have much less experience and discernment about things, to me, there were two categories of restaurants. Burger King and McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
And that was like a nice treat to go there and sit.
Yeah.
But if we went to, Lord help me, Red Lobster...
Yes.
Or Olive Garden or something. That was, to me, 8-year-old me or whatever, fine dining.
Primo.
Right.
Primo.
And kids get shrimp too. A complete meal, just $1.99.
And we didn't even know that is like the low end of the totem pole.
That's
that is
the
what casual dining is. Right? And now we have defined it.
The whole idea, the whole focus of casual dining is it is affordable, it's family friendly, and you don't have to dress up. It's not a drawn out 2-3 hour affair if you don't want it to be.
And even, also, like, there's formal dining places, but there's also, like, nicer restaurants, like ramen or Thai food or something like that, where it's like maybe it's an exotic food, but that's not what we're talking about here.
No,
Those are like
about
actual restaurants.
We're talking about the chains
that
cropped up probably within the last 50 to 60 years.
Right.
That's really caught on. It has been in a decline, the actual casual dining industry. It has been supplanted in a lot of aspects by fast casual, which we will get to. But to get into the history here, we're not going to do the whole history of restaurants, but a brief history of restaurants, right? It's from a French word that literally means to restore to a former state.
I say.
The idea
because
being,
when you eat,
exactly, your strength is restored, you know, your vitality is restored.
This is a place where you can go be restored.
You go be restored, exactly. And eating establishments have obviously been around since people needed to eat food. I mean, we're talking since BC.
Yeah.
Since ancient times, eating establishments, quote unquote, have been around. But
since the dawn of civilization.
Pretty much, Quinn, yeah. And not in the sense that we would think of them now, but, you know, where you'd go to a place that would have like a pot of gruel.
Like a tavern or a pub.
Or an inn, if you will. You know, there were even wine bars, and not kidding around. There were wine bars back then. You'd go and you drink your wine.
I'm sure the Romans were all on top of that.
It was all Roman,
yeah. Of course they were.
Of course, Romans wine.
Yeah.
Have your
got
tapas.
A big city. I mean, you got people serving all sorts of things.
And you got to drink. And yeah, like Quinn said, taverns, inns, and things like that. But the modern restaurant, the way we think of it, where you walk into an establishment, usually a host or a hostess or a maitre d' or whatever the case may be, says hi, and then they take you to a table, right? And then a waiter brings us to all that. That really originated in France, not surprisingly, one of the cuisine capitals of the world.
I mean, maitre d'. Like, it's like super French.
Restaurant.
Yeah.
And that was in the late 1700s.
That makes sense. I mean, France, they are a cultural icon. There was plenty of things started over there. It makes total sense that the restaurant would begin in that area.
Absolutely. France,
Paris, I'm assuming.
I think it was, yeah. France obviously was on the pulse of cuisine and still is in a lot of ways to this day. And fine dining really became the norm. And this was in the 1800s and into the 1900s, the complete opposite of your greasy spoon, your lunch counters that were also cropping up, where blue-collar workers would literally, in the middle of their workday, let's say you're a farmer or some kind of a mechanic or something, you'd wander in your overalls.
Get a quick bite.
Yeah, get a greasy sandwich and whatever the heck they have.
That's
right?
more closer to fast food. If
It
you
is.
look. Yeah.
It is. But fine dining was the complete opposite of that, where men were wearing, either black tie or white tie.
Right.
Wearing tuxedos, formal wear. And this is not just you go in and get an appetizer and like one entree. You get, courses worth.
Yeah.
You have different forks, Quinn.
And I'm sure it wasn't just the rich. I'm sure, maybe people of lower classes would spend maybe they're taking their wife somewhere or something, right?
Well, yeah, there's also that.
It's a higher level than most people are used to eating their dinner.
On a regular basis?
Yes.
Right, unless you have a lot of money where you live in Connecticut, right, John Ficento? But anyway, the experience was a much more formal affair.
Right.
Restaurant eating. And then Prohibition hit, and that actually impacted the restaurant industry a real lot. And then
you're taking away one of the fundamental aspects of going to a restaurant.
Exactly. And what about the stock market? I heard that crashed in 1929.
1929, it crashed, and a lot of things changed.
A lot of things did change.
And a lot of industries had to adapt. A lot of industries went under.
Yeah.
It was a huge change. It changed how people did everything, right?
Something with Al Capone, I'm not really sure, but yeah, it did.
One thing that it changed is nobody cared anymore about this prohibition business.
Right.
They already barely cared anyway. They were already breaking the law, but now they were like, this can't be the law. We don't have any tolerance for this even being the law. It was very shortly after the Depression began that this was gone immediately.
Prohibition was revoked, yep.
Yeah.
Around this same time, in the 30s and into the 40s, as we get into World War II, was the, slow erosion of fine dining being the norm when you went out to a restaurant. And instead, what had cropped up, and we covered this in our Burger Wars episode, were places like White Castle.
Right.
Fast food.
Buy White Castle by the sack, because nobody eats just one.
Yes.
Something that you could get quickly, and it was inexpensive because that was the need for people at the time.
Now, to go hand in hand with all this, though, you did have stuff like the diner. Right?
In certain states, not every state had a diner, or a greasy spoon, a lunch counter.
But you had not a chain like a White Castle or something like that, but local quicker eating establishments.
Less formal, like a mom and pop shop.
But it was fast.
It was faster.
Right.
Yeah, it absolutely was.
And the automat, too. Don't forget
the automat. We have to mention the automat.
Never forget the automat.
Very, very important, folks. But one of the first, there is no defined first casual dining restaurant, but a precursor that maybe you guys have heard of would be Howard Johnson's. They sprung up in the 20s and were really popular initially until the 40s.
Howard Johnson's is famous for fried clams. Tender, sweet, deeply crusted and golden brown. Crispy, crunchy, sweet as a nut.
And they were like a family-friendly franchised restaurant. There were a lot of them throughout the United States. They then went into the hotel-motel business and eventually experienced a lot of hardship before going under. But maybe some of you old-timers out there, maybe you've heard your parents talk about it, Howard Johnson's was a very popular chain for a long period of time in the 20th century. But the actual casual dining, as we think of it, was there to meet a need. And just guess when this started to take off, Quinn.
The 50s. I don't even have to think about it. I mean, everyone's got a spare coin in their pocket.
Yep, the American dream,
people are starting families. Houses are cropping up all over the country. New suburbs.
Exactly.
These people got to eat, right?
These people got to eat.
And they don't want to cook it every night.
No,
they don't want to go out on the weekend.
And they have the luxury to be able to afford it. Like Quinn very neatly said there, people are moving out of the big cities into the suburbs.
Yeah.
We all know about the rise of suburbia in the 50s and 60s.
There ain't much to do out there sometimes. I mean, you got Town Square and
maybe, right?
maybe. Yeah, if they built it yet.
And the other thing is too, people that live in the suburbs generally used not their feet for a means of transportation, but cars, which gave a wider net for people to go to different places.
You could open these kind of places in any corner of the vicinity of the town, right?
Exactly. People might travel 20, 30 minutes if they felt like it to go to your establishment. So there were just increasing incomes for the middle class at that time.
And access,
and
clearly.
access. And with that came a greater demand for more dining options. And one of the things that happened around this time in the 50s and 60s is I guess you can call them food distributor networks, basically your supply chain for food.
The highway system, so you could transport all of that stuff.
All hand in hand.
It's all connected.
All the logistics that go into the highway system.
And that's not just me, the usual clinic. Oh, it's all connected. No, it is all connected.
It really is,
It's like them being able to transport food, make food for cheaper than they used to.
Exactly. Bulk produce, mass produce, wholesale it. All these companies that were producing some facet of what goes into a restaurant, whether it's the meat, whether it's, your
flour.
Yeah.
Their
flatware.
Yeah, like all the basics.
All the basics.
Were all now cheap in the 50s.
The equipment, the food, all of it. They would then build relationships with these new establishments. And the idea there was to be able to produce the goods that were needed, store them where needed. It's not just mom and pop putting their, old meat in the shed.
Right.
It's a gross visual, but you know what I'm saying, right?
It's also not just like a specialty restaurant that has a hookup with some vendor somewhere. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
or a locally owned farm to table type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's much more confined. This allows restaurants to have wider menu options because they have more access to the goods, to the materials, and to the food itself. And as these distribution companies became more sophisticated, they became able to manage all of this stuff. And what this did for the development of chain restaurants is it allowed a standardized menu throughout all of the franchises.
Yep.
So a guy like Roy Kroc, we had talked about them, we talked about White Castle and KFC and all those other guys in the fast food episode.
They use the system for another means, but it's the same system.
It's the same system pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Just to deliver a slightly different product. And again, the reason that this worked so well, and these really started to boom after the 60s, into the 70s, into the 80s and 90s, is again, moderate prices. It's not fine dining prices, right?
Yeah.
You can get an entree, maybe an appetizer, a drink. It's reasonable.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt your pocketbook, as they say.
Yep. And like we said, it's made possible because to get the product is also cheaper.
Yes, exactly, Quinn. And it's a safe family atmosphere. It is not some rowdy pub.
Right.
And it is not some snooty, and I'm using it to be facetious, but it's not some snooty fine dining place either.
It's somewhere in the middle,
It's
like the
somewhere
middle class.
Oh, is that what it is for middle America, perhaps?
Middle America,
right?
the middle class. It's very 50-50. It's very even.
Right? Even Steven,
even
if you will.
Stevens, yeah.
So much so that they would have, children's menus. They'd have kid-friendly options. It was okay if the kid sat there and colored while waiting for his cheeseburger.
It doesn't
or
matter,
something. Right.
yeah.
With our kids' chicken finger basket, you get chicken fingers, a mound of fries, a drink, and a sundae.
And don't forget me.
And Chuckles the finger puppet you make yourself.
I love fingers.
He could color. They would sometimes give you the crayons.
They give you paper, the placemats for the kids. They were coloring books, basically.
And as these families cropped up during the baby boom, these places became indispensable and invaluable to families looking for a dining out experience, but without having to get all dressed up and spend a lot of money and not have to make a reservation. You could do it on a spur of a moment a lot of times.
Oh, yeah. You could just walk right in.
Most times you can, right?
And even nowadays you can. And with the power of technology, you can also... You say, I'm here, and then you can leave and then come back.
It's very, very good. So, folks, we're going to want to hear some of your favorite casual dining restaurants. What we're going to do in a second here is talk about a bunch of the chains. Not every single one. There's so many of them, obviously.
Yep.
So we're not omitting anything with any explicit purpose. But what I do want to kind of bring this back to the acid-washed memories aspect is, for me, like I said, growing up, going to a Chili's or an Applebee's or Ruby Tuesdays or Olive Garden, to me that was such a big deal. I think my 30s now, it's more of like, It's all okay.
Yeah.
Well, what's your take on it?
It's kind of the same way. I mean, I really looked forward to going to these were a step above McDonald's.
Yeah.
And like they felt like a weekend place or that kind of thing. Or, you get done shopping or doing some chore or task or something, and it's like, hey, do you want to all go out to Applebee's?
Sure.
Yay, yeah, definitely. The food's great,
Yeah.
and it's not like we're rushed, and you don't feel like it's junk food. I think that's was the difference to me.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It doesn't feel like it's junk food. It doesn't feel like it's fast food.
Right.
It feels like there might be some nutritional value, though some would dispute that.
There is, and they would put it on the menu too, no doubt. But,
absolutely.
Yeah, it just felt like a special experience. On top of it, they all had different themes, and they all had different kinds of menus, and it gives you choice too, as far as like, hey, we could go to Applebee's, or we could go to Chili's, or maybe On the Border, or like one of these places.
Yeah.
But what are you in the mood for, basically, right?
Pretty much, Quinn. You know what? Let's talk about the experience here. We're going to talk about a bunch of different restaurants shortly, but all of them have some things in common. Most of all is the casual atmosphere. And we really, it isn't just like a bit of nomenclature. It really is casual when you go into these places.
Yeah. So I think the template for like how it's all laid out, right? As far as like, I'm just talking the building.
The prototypical usually has, you walk in, there's kind of a waiting area, with a bench or something. Because usually, and these places on the weekend are usually like lines out the door. There's a wait, yeah.
Right? You can either tell the lady, they'll give you that buzzer thing.
Yeah, some places do.
Or now they do it with the phone.
Now they text you.
But either way, so okay, right? But the other thing these places have usually is a bar where you can opt to just sit at. There's no like wait. You just go and, you could just wait at the bar until your seat's ready or not.
Or you could eat there.
Yeah. And it had like a different menu sometimes.
The bar menu, yeah.
And then it's either surrounded by like a vast amount of like booths and tables and, hey, you want a booth? You want to so like they all generally have that same exact setup. They usually have very accessible bathrooms. I just want to note that.
Yeah, and some of them aren't bad.
Yeah, they're not crappy.
Some of them are not
because
crappy.
It's like, no, this is a restaurant.
Right.
They're not like, if you go to McDonald's bathrooms, like, you don't know. But I just always thought that they have
Quinn
this like
bathrooms.
very prototypical layout, and then there's the theme.
Yes.
As me and Joe like to say, the shit on the walls, right?
A lot of these places are a shit on the walls.
They always have some shit all over the walls, right?
Yes.
Like I remember Ruby Tuesdays, for example, right?
Oh, back in the day, yeah.
They would have like a lot of, you couldn't tell, but I felt it was like movie memorabilia and like all sorts of weird like memorabilia
artifacts
of some kind, right?
Yeah.
Like old things, right? And I remember they had Dorothy's ruby slippers, which definitely weren't the originals.
No, they're somewhere else.
But they just had them like on the wall, like maybe a picture of the Wizard of Oz next to it. But this is the kind of nonsense that would be all littered throughout these places. I remember Applebee's, for example, would have whatever the local high schools in the vicinity.
Yeah.
They'd have a couple of like pictures of like, and these were real because I recognized some of the kids on the wall sometimes where I was like, oh wait, those are in my class or whatever, right? And he'd be like championship soccer team, 1997, And
then they keep it up for 15 years.
Yeah, it'd be up forever. But the point is like Applebee's kind of that like family, like it's local. We're local.
We're local. We're in your neighborhood.
There's an Applebee like 5 seconds later.
Well, it's
like 5 seconds down the road.
Different
anyway,
Applebee.
but like the point is they always have like a theme to them.
They do, and it's all to contribute to that casual, folksy atmosphere. Right?
Yeah.
And then the bar is always solid at all of these places I've noticed.
I'll give the bars,
you can always rely on the bar.
They have like everything.
Yeah, the bars are always good.
They're fully stocked bars. These are not like crap bars.
Yeah, the bars are usually very, very good, right?
Yeah.
You can ask for any drink. They know what it is.
Not to mention, some of them, in some locations, the bars will be open past when the dining is open.
That's true. Sometimes the dining room will close at, let's say, 12, and the bar's open until 2.
Yeah, they'll stay open to like real bar hours.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I always thought that was interesting.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
And a lot of these places have a similar menu. Obviously, the cuisine varies and the specialties vary, but you get your appetizers, your mozzarella sticks and things like that, potato skins or whatever. And then a lot of burgers, a lot of chicken sandwiches, you get entrees sometimes.
But it depends on the place.
But it depends on the place, and we'll talk about that. But the general feel is the same in all of these places.
Right.
One of the most popular ones to this day, one of the most widespread ones, is TGI Fridays, just known as Fridays, I think, at certain points. Thank goodness it's Friday is what it stands for.
It's 2 for 20 time at Fridays, which means any 2 people can come to Fridays, and for only $20, you get 1 appetizer like our spicy buffalo wings, 2 delicious entrees or specialties like the herb grilled chicken or shrimp Fridays, plus 1 unbelievable dessert like the mocha mud pie.
And this was founded by Alan Stillman out of New York City, out of Manhattan, in 1965, if you're playing along for the dates. We're not doing these in any particular order, by the way. And the concept here was, believe it or not, a singles bar for women in particular.
Why that seems like, why would you cut your scope to just 50% of the population?
I think part of it is he lived nearby an apartment building that had a bunch of airline stewardesses and things like that. I guess he came to this realization that there wasn't really a safe place at this time in the mid-'60s that was kind of accessible and friendly for women to go to,
Well, that's a noble goal.
There was some nobility in it. So what this guy, Alan Stillman, did is he purchased a bar that he went to called The Good Tavern.
Yeah? Good.
On 63rd Street, and he renamed it TGI Fridays. And the focus here was American-style cuisine, like we mentioned, bar food, and, of course, the bar itself was a big draw.
Now, I'll tell you this, from my perception of TGI Fridays, the theme seemed to be it's a party, right?
Yes.
It's the end of the week.
Everyone looks forward to Friday.
Even if you went on Tuesday, it's Friday over here, right? We're having a good time, right?
It's Friday every day, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the whole point.
Yeah.
And you're right. It became popular in the 60s. He was already franchising 2 years in.
Right.
2 years in, he was franchising.
I'll say this about TGI Fridays. There's never been one that I didn't think was, pleasant to be at.
They're fine.
They're fun, right? It's I think the theme actually, works over there.
I'm fine with it. Fridays is one of the stereotypical ones to me.
Right.
And I know that this is not just in the United States. I know they have them elsewhere. So... And you guys in the UK that listen to us in Australia and Canada and New Zealand, perhaps, I know you have your own restaurants. We're trying to do a wide net here with ones that are everywhere, because there's ones that are exclusive to certain countries.
Right.
But Fridays, I think, is one of those stereotypical, you know what you're going to get.
Right.
Maybe
those potato wedge things.
Those potato wedge things, a decent burger.
Yeah.
Good bar, right? Maybe some chicken fingers and fries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've always kind of liked Fridays. By the way, it became the family-friendly one that we think of today in the 70s, throughout the 70s.
It didn't take very long, apparently.
Didn't take that long, especially by the 80s.
By the time they were franchising, it's we can't just be a women's place.
Right.
We have to be for everyone, right?
Exactly.
Kids, men, women, girls and boys, right?
Old folks, whatever you want.
Dogs and cats.
Yeah,
pets welcome. No, I'm just kidding.
Another popular one, too, is Chili's.
It's just not Chili's till you light up the grill, and that means steaks, like our new Solano strip steak and new steak pico, smothered with onions, bell peppers, and 2 kinds of cheese.
Chili's is it very popular outside the U.S.? I think it is, right?
I would hope so, because it's delicious.
I think Chili's is pretty good. I think I like Chili's more than Fridays. Quinn, what about you? Do you have a preference?
I like Chili's a lot, because Chili's is a southwestern menu.
Tex-Mex.
It's like Tex-Mex, but it's also just generic enough so it doesn't feel exotic. So
correct.
Which I always thought was lended itself. You could take kids there, and there's nothing to
it's
that they're not used to eating.
Yeah, it's just regular kid stuff.
So it was very to me. Chili's was believe it or not, I felt the most well-rounded personally. You could get a steak dinner there, or you could get fajitas.
You could.
It didn't matter.
Just get chips.
Yeah,
and salsa.
Whatever you were in the mood for, they seem to have, and their margaritas were great.
Yeah, their margaritas are very good, actually.
They're tasty,
They
right?
actually are good, yes.
Chili's is still to this day, I have one in walking distance. Which if I'm
that ain't a bad Chili's either.
Yeah, it's a pretty good Chili's. If I'm really if I'm with a friend or something, I don't feel like cooking. You want to just like walk across the street to the Chili's. I just love it because there's never anything I don't want there.
Yeah.
And like the drinks are great because you're drinking too. You can walk home. It's fantastic.
Well, there you go, Quinn.
You can have as many beers as you want.
Now, do you want to hear how it was founded? Because I can tell you. A guy named Larry Levine in Dallas, so Texas, lines up actually. 1975. So Chili's is younger than Fridays. And his idea, and I'd say he played it out very nicely, was an informal place with a full-service waitstaff and bar focused on burgers and Tex-Mex food with a Southwestern motif.
Well, they nailed it.
He
They're still
nailed
doing
it, right?
Yeah.
They're still doing it.
Now, Chili's doesn't have 800 things on the wall either, which is nice.
No, they're a little classier with their wall choices, Quinn.
It's
they're
true.
a little more discreet
They're
about
just like,
it.
this is Tex-Mex. Like, that's what it is.
Take it or leave
it. Take it or walk out, please.
Yeah, walk home. By the early 80s, they had already opened 28 locations and then obviously continued to explode in popularity. Today, there are 1,600 or so locations, a popular restaurant. And who could forget the baby back ribs jingle?
I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back ribs, baby back ribs. I got my baby back ribs.
Here's the other one. We've been talking about it. Applebee's.
Whoa, looking for something that's too good to be true? Well, Applebee's Neighborhood Grill and Bar is serving up some terrific combos, each just $7.99. Like riblets and steak, it's too tasty. Or riblets and grilled chicken, too tantalizing.
Applebee's. These are like the big three, I feel like, in this space, are they not?
You know what? I'd say in 2023 they are, because some of the other ones went under.
They're top tier.
I think so, but I've never been the biggest fan of it. It's probably not my favorite.
I've always thought part of... I feel like I'm biased a little bit because I feel like Applebee's came to the area the latest.
It did.
Chili's and TGI Fridays kind of ruled the roost around.
Oh, the roost was being ruled.
My location.
No, you're right, Quinn.
And then Applebee's showed up, and at first I wasn't sure what to make of it because I was like, "Who the hell are these people?" But I don't know. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, they're going for the local neighborhood.
That was their
vibe.
focus.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. The one by us. Not a good one, or it wasn't historically anyway. I had some cold, chewy things there, man.
You know what's interesting about that is that I've heard people have bad stories. Personally, believe it or not, like, don't believe me if you don't want to.
I want to.
I have never really had a bad experience at that specific Applebee's.
Really? I know people that have gotten like dysentery
I've
from
had
there.
bad experience at other Applebee's, but not that one.
Not this Applebee's with the high school soccer team on it or whatever.
Yeah. Seriously, like, I've never... The drinks have been decent. The fries are always pretty dang good over there.
There was a period of time where they had these garlic fries. I don't think they do anymore. It's probably about 15 years ago. They were delicious.
The burgers are fine, like, and all the other stuff is great.
It's all fine. If it's not chewy and like sometimes... Depending on who's in the kitchen at some of these places, though, we need to mention, even though the menu is consistent, even within your same restaurant, it is not always consistent quality.
Because the cook staff changes.
Yeah, it changes. Everything changes, right?
Now, we should touch on the cooking for 1 second.
Go ahead, Quinn.
A lot of this stuff is pre-prepared at a facility and just microwaved at the... That's like the illusion. I know that.
Yeah, microwaved or at least put onto some type of hot
maybe
surface.
put on the grill after it gets back.
Right, put it on a lamp. I don't know. Whatever. Times are tough.
So it's to have uniformity, just like a McDonald's or something.
Yeah, it's like we were saying about the whole distribution system.
Yeah, essentially it's the uniformity of regular dining food, like not fast food, right?
Correct.
Like it's, hey, we have to figure out how to make steaks the exact same way in every location.
Right, whether we're in Davenport, Iowa.
And what I do find interesting, Joe, is that I wonder is like they do ask if you want it medium or rare. Do they have like how do they like arrange
I don't
that?
know.
Or like do they have cook times or something like specifically for like why is it always, because when I ask for medium rare it's always like this exact kind of medium rare.
I would wager that certain things they have to make there and they are delivered frozen and they heat them up. But I'm sure we have people, I am positive of it, that we have people listening that have worked at any of these establishments or similar, maybe on the cooking line, maybe on the wait staff. Let us know your stories. Let us know your good ones and your bad ones, because that's going to be fun in the fallout of this episode is hearing people's stories, people that worked.
I'm sure we're going to hear, this guy used to spit in everyone's food and all that.
We want to hear about it, though. On Twitter at AWM Podcast and join our group. But Applebee's, to go back to them, they were founded in Atlanta, Georgia by Bill and TJ Palmer. And this one, they were late to the game overall as well in 1980.
That makes sense why the expansion took longer.
Correct. And their vision was to create a restaurant that had a neighborhood pub feel to it.
That's what it has.
Could offer friendly service along with quality fare at a lower price than most of their competition. Now, I will say, I haven't been to Applebee's in a while, but I did find them to be a little bit cheaper than Fridays and Chili's.
That's the other thing, too. Yeah, they do have a cheaper menu.
Right? A little bit.
And I wonder if a lot of that has to do with their trying to appeal to the families. And, you know, when you take a family out, it costs more money.
Yeah.
So if everything's cheaper, it's a huge plus. Because you do go there. And I don't know if you've taken your family there, Joe.
No.
But there's a lot of other families.
Not allowed to.
Yeah, there's a lot of other families there.
Yes, there
usually.
are. Yes, there are.
You know?
They're loud.
Yeah.
There's a place where all people come together to enjoy friends and the good food of life. It's got to be Applebee's.
The Applebee's went well because they opened in 1980. By 1989, the end of the decade, they had opened their 100th restaurant already, so things were going well. And then by the 90s, Quinn, they were one of the largest sit-down restaurant chains in the United States.
They exploded in the 90s. They went from who is this to like they were like everywhere.
So they did take over the neighborhood. See?
Yeah.
They did it.
They were in every neighborhood.
Yeah, and they still are. 1,700 of them
Yeah.
throughout the world right now. Another one that has kind of a sadder ending. I mean, it's still in business, but this one, Quinn, unfortunately, I feel is a case of missed potential here. Ruby Tuesday.
Ruby Tuesday. It's a brand new Tuesday.
I feel like the problem with Ruby Tuesdays is what's the first thing you think of as far as like their competition is concerned?
Fridays?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Like right off the jump.
Because of the day of the week thing?
Yeah, like it's immediately like, is this just the same thing? Like, why does this even exist? You know what I mean?
Call it like Stinky Sundays or something like that.
Yeah.
But you know, you're right. Well, I never thought of the day of the week thing. That's a good point. It was named after that Rolling Stone song, Goodbye Ruby Tuesday. Although what's funny is I hadn't heard the song, as a kid. I knew the restaurant.
You know, that's how you know it was founded by a baby boomer.
I would think so, yeah. 1972, Sandy Beal III.
Right.
Out of Knoxville, Tennessee. They did well in the 70s. Throughout the 70s, a new location was opening every 9 months or so they were doing good. Now, what was interesting about Ruby Tuesday is they changed their branding a couple of times in our lifetime. So the stereotypical classic Ruby Tuesdays that you and I think of, the dark one that we had in our mall, the old school Ruby Tuesdays of the 80s and 90s that maybe some of you guys grew up with, it was kind of dim. They had these faux Tiffany lamps.
Yeah.
It had this bar and grill feel to it, very, very informal. And then around 2007 or so, they changed their branding to they reduced all of the shit on the walls aspect of everything, right? They changed out the old decor. They upscaled and streamlined everything, and they focused more on the quality of their food and de-emphasized the bar and grill aspect.
The new Triple Prime Burger, Ruby Tuesday.
And I really liked that version from like the late... Yeah, like I'm talking towards the end of the Bush administration into the Obama administration around that time.
Yeah, I think I know where they were a little more sleeker or whatever. Like,
their fries got really good and they changed some things around.
I feel like it was too little too late because the issue was that, like I said, I really feel like...
You think it's the name?
No, not just the name. By the time we got to the 2000s... The 90s was like a huge explosion for all these, you can tell.
Yeah.
It really felt like Applebee's, Fridays,
Chili's.
And Chili's just kind of like pushed out. There was no room for anyone else as far as these as far as that kind of food.
Really?
For these kind of restaurants.
Well, I guess what we're talking about, these 4 restaurants that we've mentioned, they're all American cuisine. I mean, I know that Chili's is more on the Tex-Mex side, but it's still the same thing.
But I mean, I would argue another one that got pushed out here, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but I feel like Ruby Tuesdays falls under the same problem as Bennigan's.
Bennigan's, food and fun for humans.
For the record, to button up Ruby Tuesday, they filed for Chapter 11 in 2020. Obviously, the pandemic exacerbated the problems they were already having.
They're going to use the bankruptcy to kind of get their house in order and restart? Like, is that the plan?
Protect their asses, if you will, and their assets. And,
I mean, like Macy's does that. Like every 20 years, that's like the Macy's way.
And JCPenney.
Right? Yeah, like all the department stores. Like when they declare bankruptcy, everyone makes a big deal of it. I'm like, oh, just mark your calendar. Like that's like what they always do that.
It's
like,
true.
We're not going anywhere.
They still got 200 or so locations, and maybe some of you have never eaten at a Ruby Tuesday, and all I'm saying is in 2007 or 2008 you should have if you didn't, because they were good. Bennigan's, Quinn mentioned. So Bennigan's, if you don't know, because again, this is one where there's very few open. I'll spoil it for you. There's only 25 open.
That's a
anymore.
shame. Because I really like Bennigan's.
Now, I remember you being Mr. Bennigan.
Because their burgers are incredible.
Were they?
Like, they were great. They were like infused with A1 or something. Like they did. Did
they have the A1? They had the Guinness burger.
Or Guinness. Sorry, the Guinness. But they were infused with a thing. And like the only other time I've seen that is like when Burger King sometimes does it.
They do the A1.
Yeah, like, but
or
like
peanut butter or whatever Burger King does.
Bennigan's had some killer burgers, and like, to be quite honest with you, I always like the theme of Bennigan's, the Irish pub.
It's an Irish pub.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Irish pub, but still sit down, like still
decent,
it's
still a regular restaurant,
right? Yeah,
it's just a theme. They just say that.
I always thought they did the
doesn't mean anything.
I always think they did the mix well.
What mix
of pub but also restaurant? Because a lot of places can't get that right.
How did they get it wrong?
Because you can go too pubby.
Now,
like, you know what I'm saying?
How is it too? How can it be too pubby? I just want to know, like, what.
Well,
I'd be
you got a rowdy
into.
bar, and it's like most of the it takes up most of the place,
and they're watching the footy.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't want to be
way too pub-esque.
But on the other side, you could do too little pub.
Yeah,
like a publet.
Yeah.
And you don't want just a publet.
Yeah, you don't. That's no good.
Where you're crammed into a phone booth next to some guy.
No good.
Right?
No good.
Drinking a juice. Anyway, Norman Brinker is the one that founded Bennigan's, and Norman Brinker was also involved in Jack in the Box. He was the president. Okay. Steak and Ale, and he founded Brinker International, which owns a bunch of restaurants.
I feel like you're going to tell me he also owned Cheers, because when I thought of Bennigan's, I always thought of Cheers.
He did not own the Bull and Finch pub, which is now known, I guess, as Cheers, and they rename it.
They should have. I don't know why they didn't do it in the
80s. Well, at least the 90s, right?
The show was popular.
That's a good point. Yeah, Brinker, by the way, I guess we should just cover them briefly. They're one of those conglomerates. You know how a lot of restaurants are owned by like one big company now?
Yeah.
So Brinker actually owns Quinn Chili's and Maggiano's Little Italy.
So he doesn't care what happens to Bennigan's if he's got Chili's.
No, and and Just Wing. Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But Bennigan's, yes.
Poor Bennigan's.
Well, listen, 1976 in Atlanta, if you're curious. And like Quinn said, the thing here, so we got our Tex-Mex and our American. This was an Irish pub.
Yeah.
That was the theme, except it wasn't really an Irish pub. It was a restaurant with a bar in it. It could have said Hurley's on the front.
Yeah.
It could have said McDowell's on the front.
It said Bennigan's.
It said Bennigan's, and they did have the Guinness burger, which was tasty.
That was why I would go there. Like, I was like, this is so good. Why is this nowhere to be? You can't get it anywhere else.
Their marketing was also very convincing, from what I recall. It made you feel like if you went there, you were just going to have a great time.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
The marketing was good.
I always got good drinks there.
Yeah, they were
like
good.
Everything was good there. It was so depressing to me, like when it started to close down.
Yeah, I mean, their highest point was probably the early to mid 80s. They were still popular when we were kids, but all of the U.S. locations closed in 2008.
Right.
That was when that happened. There was a big economic recession, as you know, around that time.
Think you have to be famous to get special treatment? At Bennigan's, everyone gets it.
But today there are 25 Benegai open, so
it's unfortunate.
Maybe one day we'll get one near us again, Quinn.
Maybe we need to get in the car and go find where one is near us.
And I got an even more unfortunate one for you. This one we used to have over on Highway 18 over here, and I loved this place, believe it or not. It was known as Chi-Chi's.
Chi-Chi's! With our new celebration sampler, there's a dozen ways to celebrate.
That's like a gut punch.
Mexican-themed restaurant.
Chi-Chi's was unbelievable.
Yeah,
like, it was so good.
Chili's did Tex-Mex, kind of, and Southwestern, kind of. Chi-Chi's really went for more on the Mexican.
Went full-blown, this is Mexican food.
South of the border
But it was a sit-down, like, it was like a nice...
Taco Bell.
It was like a nice, like, cantina style, I think, is what it was going, like, or...
Kind of, yeah, kind of like on the border.
I don't know why, but I very specifically remember... The way the tables were laid out there was like you had like a window, and like it was like these nice like dark wood table. Like,
yes,
it felt like a home or something, and it had this weird like living room foyer or something like in the center.
And the outside was like a yellowish, but it looked cool.
Yeah, and it was laid out that way on the inside too, which was just it was very cozy.
I loved that.
I remember it had like
man.
a bar like in the corner, but it was small.
But it wasn't too little pub, right?
It was actually littler, but it was more like they would come to your chair and stuff and deliver the food to you.
Was the balance still right?
The balance was great.
Okay, just making sure.
Chi-Chi's was so underrated. Their chips were like insanely
Their
good.
chips and salsa were amazing.
It was so good you could buy the salsa at the store.
I know.
They had like a side business.
It was a great time.
Yeah.
For a limited time, $4.50 buys you an incredible meal. First, dip into all the fresh homemade chips and salsa you want. Then, sink your appetite into our famous chicken or ground beef chimichanga, served up crisp, flaky, and hot.
This is a Mexican and Tex-Mex themed restaurant, as we mentioned. So, of course, it was founded in Richfield, Minnesota.
What?
So
maybe they really wanted that up there. They were like, we want somebody like took a trip down the by the border one summer, and they came back and they're like, damn it, I just want that food now.
I guess so.
Why is this not everywhere?
And that man's name was Marno McDermott.
Yep.
Who's
in my headcanon, that's what happened.
Yeah.
He went on vacation in Mexico and he came back and he had a craving.
And his wife's nickname, by the way, was Chi-Chi. That's where this came from.
He was visiting relatives.
Maybe he was. His partner that founded this was Max McGee, a former Green Bay Packer, so I bet no one expected that. Now, what happened at Chi-Chi's is very sad. They had a hepatitis A outbreak in late 2003.
Oh, no, I remember that now.
When we were seniors in high school.
Yeah.
Certainly this is the last kind of publicity a restaurant wants, especially one that is already financially troubled. Chi-Chi's recently filed for reorganization under Chapter 11 bankruptcy, but the experts say when a public health issue and a restaurant's reputation come together like this, prompt action is vital.
4 deaths and 600 plus cases of Hep A because of Chi-Chi's and whatever was going on.
Were they found at fault, meaning like that they didn't, I don't know, like inspect their food or something?
I don't know the situation.
Yeah.
All I know is that, that's horrible for all the people involved, obviously, but I was sad because I really liked Chi-Chi's.
I think everyone was sad for the loss of the chips, to be quite honest.
Thing, man.
Yeah.
Today there is one location, Quinn.
Really?
In Vienna, Austria. So if you're ever in the neighborhood, you can go to Chi-Chi's. Imagine
they got the Roy Rogers setup over there where it's like this one company that services this one restaurant.
I'm just picturing
in the world.
Picturing Quinn finally going to Europe, finally going on the vacation, going to Austria.
That's the reason to go to Vienna.
Like, I'm going to Chi-Chi's.
Yeah.
I don't need no Wiener Schnitzel.
I'll walk up to the hotel person. Sir, where is the Chi-Chi's?
You get out my country.
Yeah.
Fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got more restaurants to talk about, but why don't we take a rest? Why don't you guys restore? On the other side of this break, a few more popular chains of past and present, and we'll talk about what happened and what is happening with the casual dining industry when more Acid Wash Memories returns right after this.
Echoes of reggae coming through my bedroom wall. How a party up next door, but I'm sitting here all alone. 2 lovers in the bedroom, and the other started to shine.
Wow, that's a lot of shrimp.
At Red Lobster, for a limited time, enjoy 30 shrimp for just $9.99.
What sounds good to you folks tonight? 30 shrimp, please. Great choice.
With lemon pepper shrimp, succulent scampi, delicious grilled shrimp, and our famous fried shrimp. That's 4 different kinds. 30 shrimp on one plate, just $9.99 at only one place.
Only at Red Lobster.
And kids get shrimp too. A complete meal, just $1.99.
TGI Fridays has introduced gourmet pizzas, and I have just the way to show them to you. Great combinations like very veggie pizza, or barbecue chicken pizza, or Friday's Name Your Own Pizza with your choice of toppings. For me, it's pepperoni, mushrooms, and fresh peppers. Ooh, instant replay. Fast forward. Proof that Friday's new gourmet pizzas are gonna be great. Guaranteed.
The first time he went out, I made him take me to Chili's.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
We ordered the baby back ribs. Oh, they were so good. Tender baby back ribs with the spicy barbecue sauce.
Cindy.
Oh, and those cinnamon apples. And afterwards, he did the cutest thing. He ordered dessert with 2 spoons. It was so perfect.
Cindy, that wasn't me.
I knew that. I was just, testing you.
Oh, really? How'd I do?
Very well.
Good, I was worried.
Yeah, so was I.
Yeah, I'd like 6,000 chicken fajitas, please.
And now we return to more acid-washed memories.
And welcome back for a second helping here of Acid Wash Memories, a retro pop culture celebration, episode 21. This is Joe Murata. I'm dining with Michael Quinn.
Hi.
How's your meal?
Bon appetit.
Bon apple teeth.
Yeah.
How's your meal going there, Michael? Good?
It's perfectly average, just like these places.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we hope you find us at least perfectly average, if not better. And if you do, please leave us a review, hopefully a good one, on your podcast app of choice, maybe Apple Podcasts or whatever the case may be. And also remember, follow us on Twitter at AWM Podcast and join our group because we are eating good in this neighborhood, Michael.
Yes.
Quinn, one of the most popular to this day is Outback Steakhouse.
Yeah, the steak place.
Yeah, the steak place.
But it's Aussie.
Yeah, it's very Australian.
Outback Steakhouse. No rules, just right.
Now, this was founded in March of 1988 by a bunch of people and became very popular in the 90s, and it still is. And it's
Good
not
food just right, as they say.
Yeah, but crikey. The thing about it is, you know what's Australian themed about it? The decor and the name, but it's not Australian food.
No.
It's an American steakhouse that they just are literally Crocodile Dundeeing this thing. To be like, mate, you can get the bloomin' onion.
They
and
said
all
a
that.
lot of people founded it at Crocodile Dundee. Was he involved?
Paul Hogan might have been there.
Yeah.
He might have been
Maybe
there.
it's like, that's what we should do the theme.
But shit, this is seriously as Australian as the Subaru Outback. You know what I'm saying?
They serve Foster's.
Yeah, I think they do.
They have to, right?
to.
Like, that would be insane if they didn't.
I mean, because Foster's is Australian.
That should
for
be
beer.
like the house. That should be what's on tap is Foster's.
It should be free, actually,
Yeah.
if you ask me.
I agree.
Let's write a letter to our freeholder.
Mhm.
What do they do again?
No.
We don't know.
The same thing that the other government people do.
Okay. Well, the Outback Steakhouse does the same thing that a lot of these restaurants does, in that it gives you good or decent food for affordable prices. However, they focus on steak, clearly.
Mhm.
And that's the first one that we've mentioned. It's not the only one that focuses on steak. And I've been there, and their steaks are okay.
They're decent. They have
Right.
big ones, don't they?
They do have big ones, yeah.
Isn't that like their claim to fame? It's like you can get like a real big steak.
Like a
over
40
here.
ouncer or something
Yeah,
like
you
that.
can get like a local steakhouse style steak, but at a chain, right?
Correct. But their biggest claim to fame these days is the highly caloric, very unhealthy, but very tasty bloomin' onion.
Yeah.
A bloomin' onion. Good on you, mate.
I've tried this once and I did not like it, and I know that people adore it. Like it's the best. It's like the best or something.
I mean, I haven't had one.
They absolutely love this thing.
I don't even know how long it's been. It's probably
Yeah.
been 15 or more years since I
Mhm.
had a bloomin' onion. But good Lord, was it delicious the last
Yeah.
time I did. And I'm sure some of you out there still love that bloomin' onion, mate. Crikey, you know?
Crikey!
Stop it, mate. We don't talk like that.
But anyway, it's not really Australian. It's just, it's steaks. It's just branding. This is just marketing.
Well, for our Aussie audience, is the bloomin' onion like a thing at every local pub? Is that what everyone has? This is the bloomin' onion.
Actually, in Australia, when you lose your first tooth and you put it under your pillow, when you wake up the next day, there's a bloomin' onion under there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and a kangaroo foot.
That'll make your teeth fall out even faster.
Kangaroo foot or the onion?
The bloomin' onion.
Either way.
Who knows what's in that? There's so many ingredients in it.
Yeah, I think there's like 3 pages of ingredients. Anyway, the reason their marketing was brilliant, in my opinion, though, Quinn, is because it worked on me as like a 10-year-old, because I would see the commercials. I'm like, oh, Outback Steakhouse. That sounds so fancy. I want to go.
It sounds exotic, right?
Yeah.
Because,
and the guy's Australian.
In everywhere but Australia, right? It's like, it really does, because Australia, like, it's a very large continent, but you know, a lot of people don't live there either.
Yeah, especially not the northern part.
Yeah,
right. Seriously.
Yeah, no, it's. From my
Outback,
from my understanding, it's not super populated on the interior. You know, a lot of people don't have the experience with Australian food and cuisine and everything.
I couldn't tell you Australian food. Mark Rourke, let us know. But I must imagine, Quinn, that all of the Aussies just sneered at any of us Americans, being like, I'm going to Outback Steakhouse.
What I wonder
I would stare.
is, did Outback have the gall to open up Outback Steakhouses in Australia?
Oh, I think they exist in Australia. I
And
could be
did they
wrong.
have the gall to market on top of it?
Well, I'm sure.
This is your local food, mate. We got it everywhere.
They just have some American guy doing
Yeah,
it. Like,
yeah.
we're bringing the Australian American dining back to Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
Some bullshit. Anyway, there's another steakhouse that I don't even know if I've been to. Longhorn Steakhouse, probably once.
I always felt that was very reactionary to Outback.
It was actually first.
Was it?
Yeah, it was 1981.
It wasn't everywhere until later, though. That's interesting.
We didn't get one here until much later.
Yeah.
And there's only 500 open now. It's not as big It's not as big of a chain.
Definitely not as big.
And I didn't expect to see my ex-girlfriend dating Lou Ferrigno. Longhorn Steakhouse. Expect more from your steak.
1981 in Atlanta with George McCarroll and his best friend, Brian.
I thought you were going to say Mr. Longhorn or something.
Yeah, Mr. Longhorn founded it. I would have thought it'd be founded in Texas, but it's, because Longhorn and all that, but no. It's
steak, those beef.
Those beef
farms or whatever.
Beef farms.
It's Texas thing, definitely.
Now, this is now a Darden-owned restaurant, and speaking of Darden, we need to talk about Darden.
Now, who's Darden?
I'll tell you later. The biggest Darden-owned restaurant that you would probably know. Well, here's some of the other ones. There's Seasons 52 is Darden-owned.
Oh, boy.
Bahama Breeze.
Yeah, I know these places.
Eddie V's Prime Seafood. Mm-hmm. Ruth Chris's Steakhouse. You probably heard of that. That's more upscale. But the biggest name, I think, in Darden ownership right now would be Olive Garden.
Aha. They're crown jewel, baby.
Ask my family which Italian dishes are their favorites. They'd all agree. The Olive Garden's tour of Italy is 3 of the best.
Olive Garden is allegedly an Italian restaurant.
As a full-blooded Italian, Joe, you have always talked with disdain about this place to me. Like, you don't like it.
Here's the thing. I don't dislike it.
Yeah.
I really don't dislike it. I just have always found, and they've gotten better, they had to these last 10 years, I always found their positioning of what they were serving and offering to be very misleading as Italian food.
I see.
Because there were periods of time where they were doing very non-Italian things like spring roll, like odd menu items.
Oh, yeah, there was that period where they were trying to mix it up and put some weird stuff in the appetizers and stuff, right?
And they had too many items, and they would do like vegetable lasagna with chicken on top of it.
They were trying to do hybrid, basically. They're like, we have some Italian things, but what if we mixed it with this, right?
But to me, that's just why. Just do Italian food well. Instead of poorly doing everything.
Let's roll back for a second. Because the thing with Olive Garden, right, is as a kid, Olive Garden was one of the super rare instances of a shit on the walls, chain place.
Yes.
Where people would get dressed up to go to this place. Like, it was fancy. Right?
You're 100% right, Quinn.
What was the deal with that? Because it really, in the late 80s and early 90s, that's, as a younger child and, 8, 9 years old.
Was this fine dining to you?
I couldn't even conceive of the fact that it was a chain because of the way the adults reacted to going to this place.
Yeah.
That it was there was that it was a step above even, Chili's or something.
I think that had to do with the 80s and 90s version, the version that we grew up with, and probably many of our listeners. By the way, Olive Garden was founded in 1982, so it was relatively new when we were kids. Right. That's when General Mills owned it, by the way. General Mills founded it. Orlando, Florida. But anyway, this version, if you had ever walked into one, you would see the waitstaff in almost very formal clothing.
Yes.
They dressed like this was a fine dining restaurant.
Right.
And the decor, compared to your Applebee's and your Chili's and your Fridays,
it was nice.
It was upscale.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a kid,
right.
with perception and all that. And the way the tablecloths were white, they had tablecloths, by the way.
Yes.
Not just the wood table.
It was super weird. And then I remember also, you walk in and you're waiting, right? And you'd see families in their Sunday best at this place.
You did.
Right?
The Olive Garden. When you're here, you're family.
You see grandpa and grandma in their finery. You'd be what's going on here?
I used to go there with my grandparents all the time. Now, my grandparents clearly, Italian as well. Yeah. And they, I think, went there because it was close.
Yeah,
it was
that makes
close
sense.
by, but they never minded the food.
No.
They were never complaining about the food. And I got to say, in the 90s, the Olive Garden's food was good.
The Mediterranean shrimp scampi, Joe.
There we go.
Was quite a meal that I loved in the 90s.
They didn't lose their way until probably the later 90s, the early 2000s. Somewhere along the line, those breadsticks got worse. Remember, it was a whole thing. Remember when, McDonald's changed the fries or Burger King changed the fries? Yeah. Olive Garden changed the breadsticks.
But I also noticed past a certain point, this prestige or whatever it was with Olive Garden, it just evaporated.
Part of that is self-inflicted because they kept expanding their menu to stupid lengths. They kept doing dumb themes that were really stupid. They were throwing money out the window with their never-ending pasta, their unlimited salad and breadsticks.
Yeah.
So from a business standpoint, you could do a whole episode on what the Olive Garden did wrong in the 2000s.
Yeah.
It took a group of potential shareholders or investors or something to do like a 200-page PowerPoint about why they were losing money and horrible.
And what's so interesting about that is that, again, they're one of the rare ones where I legitimately remember them being like on the top of the world. They were
in the early 90s.
They were super prestigious. Like, you would go there on a Saturday and there would be just like the entire parking lot was filled.
Yeah.
There was people waiting outside and like conversing, and like there was like little parties of people like talking and stuff, and everyone's dressed up.
It's
and
true.
Like, this really was like this good. That you want an acid wash memory, that's one of them right there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I also wanted to make a distinction here for some of the people, because we have people from all over the United States and other countries listening. Where Quinn and I live, just for the record, is here in New Jersey. We are in not the restaurant capital of the United States, but we're close to New York.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, we also have a lot of local restaurants, farm-to-table restaurants, high-end restaurants.
But we also have a large variety of these kinds,
We
too.
do. And we have our own non-chain casual places. Like, there's a place right up the road over here that I go to often. It's a casual place. But the point I'm trying to make is that there are some people that don't have these options, Quinn, where Olive Garden, and this is not disparaging, but Olive Garden is the fancy Italian place,
Right,
in
and
certain parts of the country.
And I guess why it always surprised me is because we did live in that kind of area, and this place did have like a prestige about it.
It did well here.
I mean, I remember like a pull-up where there was like a tarp over the front, and like the cars could like pull in and drop people off.
Oh, yeah, I do. I know what you mean,
Like,
the drop-off.
It was just little touches like this that this place seemed way
a cut above, right?
cut above than it was, right? And I find it such an interesting case of like what a fall from grace, right? Like, because it really was very different than most of these places.
It was much different, and until they started mismanaging and throwing a lot of money away, and they've actually reduced all of that. They've started to get their act together, but it was very popular. My grandmother, for the record, she was fine with the restaurant. She could not stand those commercials, the when you're here, your family ones, because of the acting. It was so bad. She's like, I hate these dumb commercials. But what impressed me as a kid, I think that was the first time I ever saw the waiter or the waitress with the pepper grinder.
Yeah, they come to your
and
table,
the cheese,
and they, how much you want, sir?
Yeah.
Like again, like it's a classy restaurant.
8-year-old me is like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Yeah. This is my cousin Giorgio from Italy. Buongiorno. Word has it, he knows Italian food like nobody else. So I took him to the Olive Garden for an Italian feast. Right away, he wanted a tour of Italy.
You know, one thing before we move on here, I just want to make it clear that we know we're not going to mention every restaurant that you're possibly thinking of, especially a certain pizza joint that was famous for being able to sit in there and everything, some kind of a hut. That might be saved for a different episode. Don't worry, we didn't forget it. But there's others that we're simply either not going to think of, that we've never been to, or just for timing reasons, we can't mention every single one. So please don't take it personally, and let us know, of course, at AWM Podcast on Twitter and on our Facebook group, your favorite restaurants, the ones we didn't mention. And obviously, this is recorded at the exact same time as the rest of the episode. It's not dubbed in. Quinn is definitely still here with me. Now, another restaurant in similar vein here to Olive Garden, in that it was owned by Darden. It is not anymore. It divested from Darden in 2014. But a similar vein in the sense that one segment of the country is going to sneer at this as being a legitimate seafood place. I'm, of course, talking about Red Lobster.
It's only on page 4.
I love Red Lobster.
So if you're in New England, you're probably feeling the same way I do about Olive Garden.
Right.
So now you get it.
Okay, just on his start here, just so we know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, where are you coming from?
I personally think that the Red Lobster is one of the most underrated
Red Lobster
of these kinds.
No, it isn't. Why?
Why do I say that?
Yeah, why do you?
Because it has a super unique draw. Lobster. We have lobster.
The unique,
right? Like, it's just true, Joe. Like,
look, when there's seafood places all over.
I understand that, but I can get quick.
Just go near a body of water.
I can get lobster at any time of the year. It's quick. It's prepared. It's got the cup of the butter, the lobster tails, whatever I want lobster related. They got it. It's not garbage. It's just lobster. It's fantastic. And it's tasty, too.
Listen, I'm not going to dispute any of that.
Does it have the charm of some rusty place on
Shack.
LBI or something?
Keyport?
Absolutely not. But does it have the convenience of not having to go to the damn beach to get lobster? Yes.
Hey.
And by that token, I think the Red Lobster is very underrated.
Why do you keep calling it the Red Lobster?
Because it is the Red Lobster, Joe.
It's more than one. March of 1968, by the way. And you know what? You're going to like this because the founder, Bill Darden, by the way.
Wow, this is Darden original.
Mr. Darden.
Himself got his hands dirty on this one.
He said, I'm going to do this in Lakeland, Florida. Lakeland, because Lakeland is not coastal.
Gotcha.
Like Tampa.
So you thought the same thing I think about the place.
And hey, it caught on. It became very popular in the 80s.
Yeah.
That's when the boom for Red Lobster started. Into the 90s, all the commercials I remember seeing.
To me, that's like it really is a unique concept.
It's a niche.
When you think about it, because of the fact that prior to that, lobster was always like a rarity.
A delicacy,
it was
perhaps.
It's expensive.
Outside of New England.
And to be able to get it fresh.
Yeah.
Just on demand like that is kind of amazing.
I mean, most supermarkets have it, but then you have to cook it yourself.
Right, it's a whole production. You just go there, you order it, and it's done.
Now, one of their most popular menu items was introduced in 1992. The Cheddar Bay biscuits. People rave about these things. They are pretty good.
I like them.
And of course, they have Shrimp Fest every year.
Yeah.
Don't forget Shrimp Fest.
Oh, they have Lobster Fest.
And they have Lobster Fest. Well, clearly, Quinn.
Yeah.
So if you're a lobster lover, don't hide. Go overboard for Lobster Fest at Red Lobster.
That's the WrestleMania of Red Lobster right there.
I guess Shrimp Fest would be SummerSlam.
Yeah.
So Red Lobster in Olive Garden, I guess they fill a similar but unique niche in here's a segment of cuisine.
Yeah.
And you can now get it anywhere. Is that your basic thrust with this, Quinn?
That's to me what the advantage of these places was that depending on where you are in the country, these are two segments that you may not have access to.
Yeah.
And they're providing that. And it's no wonder that these places are usually full because, hey, I'm in the mood for seafood, or hey, I'm in the mood for Italian food. And if you don't have those kind of restaurants, these are perfect.
Yeah, that's a good point, Quinn. That's fair. And again, we want to emphasize here, these still are casual dining, especially Red Lobster.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
It's casual dining, Another specialty, and I just felt like this was worthy of a mention here, is a place known as Buffalo Wild Wings. Obviously a sports bar.
Right.
But it's maybe a little... maybe 60-40 pub to restaurant ratio.
It does have like areas to sit and stuff. Now,
Buffalo
Wild Wings is super unique to me.
Why is that, Quinn?
Because it has a incredibly large floor, meaning, and what I mean by that is it literally has a floor with just like standing tables.
Yes.
With gigantic TVs and
it's
like
a sports bar.
A strictly wings menu with some fries.
Yeah, wings, fries, sauces, and sports. That's what it's all about there. Now, Buffalo Wild Wings is not unique anymore. There's also Wingstop. But I think what made and still makes Buffalo Wild Wings so popular is football.
Football.
Right?
Football.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
People go there to watch the game and eat wings. Football and wings go hand in hand.
That restaurant is so busy during football season. And the Super Bowl.
Clearly.
It's just nutty in there.
Yeah, I wouldn't even try.
Yeah.
I would not even try.
Yeah.
There's a couple of, I want to call them the upscale marketed competitors to Olive Garden and to Red Lobster. They are Carrabba's Italian Grill. You've probably heard of them, maybe been there.
Yeah, I feel like Carrabba's, the portions are way too big for some weird reason.
Take it home.
They're insanely large at Carrabba's. I was always turned off by this. It's possible to give somebody too much food, and they do it.
Carrabba's does it? Well, they're Italians. Like a real Italian would give you too much food.
Yeah.
Yeah, mangia, eat more, December 86 in Tampa, Florida, was bought by Bloomin' Brands. You can guess whose company that is. Bloomin' Brands, Quinn.
Outback Steakhouse.
Really? Yeah, bought them out. Their sister restaurant, which, again, I feel is a competitor to Red Lobster in this case, Bonefish Grill.
Right, Bonefish.
Can I tell you the truth, Mike?
Yeah.
January 2000, by the way, in Tampa, also owned by Bloomin'. I actually really like Bonefish Grill.
It's all right.
I really like it.
It's an all right alternative
to the Red Lobster.
To the Red Lobster, yes. The Red Lobster has no competitor, Joe.
I think it has several.
It is the Red Lobster.
I like Bonefish, man. They're good fish.
Yeah, Bonefish
the
is
one
just,
over here.
Bonefish doesn't specialize in lobster, I think. They're general
no,
seafood,
it's fish.
right?
It's in their name, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, though, Quinn, Bonefish holds a special place in my heart because my third date with my now wife was there.
I remember this, and I remember that you've gone to Bonefish since.
Yeah, it's been a long, long time, but we have.
Yeah.
Because she was like, I don't eat meat, and she does now. She didn't at the time. So I was like, well, what about Bonefish? I had never been there. I just didn't. I wanted things to go well.
It seemed nicer than taking her to the Red Lobster.
Yeah, I'm not going to. Well, maybe that's a fourth date type of place, Gwen. The Red Lobster.
It's a fantastic place, Joe.
Oh, I know. But it was after this date that you said one of your more famous lines in our lore, which is, how are things going with that Alexandria?
Yeah.
And the reason that's funny is because that's not my wife's name.
She was a new girlfriend. I wasn't keeping track.
You pulled a Quinnism where you just like pulled a name out of your ass, and I like when you do that, like the Red Lobster. Here's some more honorable mentions. We'll just talk about them a little bit. Denny's.
So
this is a bit of an oddball, Quinn.
I kind of think Denny's is cool because I think the concept of, okay, there's not diners everywhere in the country, right? What if we just made a diner like a chain?
That's what it is.
It kind of works.
It works in the sense that they're uniform.
Yeah.
I don't think that Denny's is very good.
No, it absolutely is not. It's where you go when you're drunk.
Yeah.
But boy, oh boy, did they capitalize on that, because Denny's is open till like 4 a.m. or something insane.
I think it's just 24 hours, Quinn.
Yeah, okay, that's what it is.
I think ours is 24 hours.
Because there is people there after the bars close.
Creatures.
Right? Like they are like, oh no, I need to come down from
wearing galoshes.
Yeah, I need to come down from the bar.
Coffee's just a sedative at that point.
I feel like Denny's, the coffee should just be free. Right, because it's like they're gonna get you for other stuff anyway. It's just, and the coffee's garbage.
It's all maybe we just have a bad Denny's, but I do not have any real good experiences there. But
I'm
Quinn
sure
is
there's
right.
people that are like, no, the Denny's coffee, because it's what takes them out of their hangovers.
Oh, maybe.
And so they're like, no, that's good coffee.
I need that.
It's got to be pure shit to get me out of this one, right?
In case you guys are curious, Denny's actually started as Danny's Donuts in 1953. Yeah,
that was a donut joint.
It was, and then in 1956 it was Danny's Coffee Shop, and then in 1959. Denny's Coffee Shop, because they wanted to avoid confusion with some other Danny's that was nearby.
I see.
And by 1961, it just became Denny's.
Yes.
And like Quinn said, it's expanded in the 70s and 80s. Like Quinn said, it's diner themed. And as such, the reason it's an anomaly is it doesn't have a bar.
Right.
So it isn't.
So actually,
it's not really a fact.
Okay, we haven't established on this show.
Go ahead.
Do we have to explain what a diner is? Because we live in Jersey, and there's diners freaking everywhere, but like they're not common elsewhere.
It is not fast food. Let's be fair, but it's more of a. Again, greasy. I keep saying greasy spoon because that is a thing that people can relate to, especially in the UK and stuff. It's a place where there's usually a grill, like a metal grill. You make sandwiches on there, burgers, very typical fare. A cheesesteak, breakfast. It's cheap,
but it's sit down.
It's sit down,
and it's not formal. It's very much not formal.
Very casual. You're usually in and out in a shorter amount of time than perhaps even at a casual dining restaurant.
People go there for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Correct.
Like it's not just one meal of the day kind of thing.
A lot of them have a salad bar.
Yeah.
And your standard wraps, sandwiches, and no one gets it. I mean, maybe you get the entree. I don't get the entree at a diner.
You usually have
normally.
a waiter or waitress like a real restaurant, but it's fast-ish.
And sometimes you actually pay at the counter. Like at the register, not at your table.
Also, the menu is ultra diverse. Like it is everything under the sun that you could eat. You could get a filet mignon, or you could get gruel. Like it's just like it really, it's real. Like they will make anything. They will make absolutely anything there.
And we have some good diners around here, actually. Some more honorable mentions. Again, this one is not, this didn't have a bar either, but I would be remiss, and I don't want to be remiss, Quinn, if we didn't mention Sizzler.
If you're craving fire grilled steak and succulent shrimp, we've got it right here. Sizzler Steak and Shrimp Spectacular starts at just $8.99.
I miss the Sizzler.
Now, the Sizzler became the Denny's, if you recall, or maybe the IHOP. It became one of them by us. Sizzler was a steakhouse founded in 1958 in Culver City out in Los Angeles. In the 70s and 80s, it was rebranded into like a steak dinner place with a salad bar.
Right.
Sizzler was not quite... It was more like a diner in terms of the business model.
I would say it was diner-esque.
It was more like a diner. It didn't have a bar. It wasn't a casual dining place. I mean, it was you know what I mean. It was a casual dining place, but it had a buffet in the 80s, which was the big draw. And it filed for Chapter 11 in 1996. To this day,
some of them remained open.
Only a handful. Yeah.
It was weird.
You and I went all the way up to Rockaway to go to one. Remember that?
Yeah, because you were like, remember the Sizzler? And then we wandered up there to go find it.
It was like 2008 or something, and it wasn't good.
Yeah.
It was a very bad Sizzler up there.
I wasn't like, I didn't come out of it like this was horrible. I came out of it like that was just whatever.
That was Sizzler?
Yeah, it was just, okay. Like, it didn't really, it wasn't those that was like, I came out be like, oh, that was the worst thing I ever ate.
I think you got a lobster tail there.
I might have.
I think you did. Sizzler just...
I always like to push these kind of places to their limits. I'm a fan of that.
Just get the lobster.
They always get mad. Like when
what do you mean they get mad?
Some of them would get... I forget. I ordered something at a diner once that like upset them because it was going to take a while to make.
What?
It's real.
What the hell?
It was like late or something. I don't even remember what it was.
Beef Wellington?
It was
like
a
souffle?
It was something that angered them.
What could possibly anger them?
I don't remember, but I'll never do it again.
I need to know this now.
It was the kind of thing I used to do back then where, when I was younger.
Troublemaker.
I was younger and I was like, oh, I want to try everything. And I would just find like the dumbest, like, fucking, why is this on the menu?
And you would get it.
It was like super expensive, but whatever, I want to see.
And then they get mad at you.
Yeah.
Was it worth it?
Yes.
Okay. Some more honorable mentions. We're not going to do a history on these, but just wanted to shout out some other names so people can relate to this. Bob Evans was a really popular one. Mm-hmm. We don't have any up here.
Sausage people.
I've been to Bob Evans before down in Florida, in Lakeland, I believe, to be exact, and it was fine. It was kind of like, to me, a Denny's-ish place, but it was okay. There's also, Quinn, I know that you have a weird... I don't know if it's just you like the name or if it's just the place appeals to you in a weird way, but Perkins. What's your problem or affinity for Perkins? You do like it, right?
Because we didn't have them. Apparently, they were like more common or something like earlier. And I remember my dad saying that. And then they started opening more of them up again.
Yeah.
And I remember this happening and just being like, this is really good. It's like better. I always thought it was better than IHOP. Like, it was better.
Did you really? Yeah, their focus is breakfast food, right?
But they do the thing where, like, you can get lunch stuff.
Yeah,
and like you can get burgers and all the things that you can get at these kind of places. But I really thought they were super underrated, and they're still going. I know there's still one on 18.
We have one right here.
Yeah. The one funny thing about Perkins that I thought was a little silly is it's got this, like... It's like decorated like it's a bed and breakfast or something. Like there's curtains and like things like that. Curtains. It's like, hey, this is like this is grandma's house or something. Like that's really weird. And I just always thought that was interesting about it.
I guess
some of them have wallpaper. Like it's really like this is grandma's house. She's just cooking you breakfast.
I think they're going for like that Sunday brunch feel or something like that at grandma's. One of the segments of we were talking about Olive Garden for the Italian and Red Lobster for the seafood. There's also the Chinese food one, P.F. Chang's.
Yes, P.F. Chang's.
Same concept, casual enough, bar.
Now, P.F. Chang's, though, tries to be fancy Chinese food.
Yeah, but they're not. They're not. It's the same type of thing.
But you know what's funny is if you go around the country, P.F. Chang's is like, that is the Chinese food.
Right.
I find that weird because real Chinese places are dumps. But P.F. Chang's is like...
Yeah, the best ones I ever been to are dumps.
Yeah, and they're great.
Yeah, they're great.
That's the thing is when I say it's a dump...
That's a compliment.
The dumpiest Chinese place usually means, A, the food's authentic.
Yeah.
And B, like you can get tons of it for like nothing.
They're not wasting time on decor.
Yeah, but the
signage.
The best one I ever went to,
seating,
looked like it was like decorated in 1992. Plainsboro. Yeah.
Oh, your favorite?
Lotus Garden.
Lotus Garden. Hell
the
yeah.
Food is fantastic.
I like Lotus.
And they have an authentic menu.
Yes.
But that's what they call it because
Shanghai.
Because there's like Chinese places like owned by Chinese people with actual recipes from home. If you order in Chinese, you can get things that are not on the menu.
Yeah.
But the gimmick that Lotus Garden had above all the other ones is they wrote that menu in English on the back. They would just the authentic menu.
Yeah.
Everything was dramatically different from like the normal Chinese.
It wasn't the American shit.
It was absolutely not that. And it was so much better. And that's the kind of thing we have.
Yes.
So it's funny to me to hear P.F. Chang's is like the premier or something, like the top of the line Chinese food.
Because they're casting a wide net and they're doing things that are very, very appealing to American tastes. But good solid food. And of course, Hooters.
If you like what you see here on the outside, you're gonna love what you'll see on the inside. The recipe for Hooters chicken wings is so secret, even our cooks aren't allowed to know it.
Love Hooters. It's because actually
you like the. I know why.
Listen,
it's not because of the girls. It's
like. Actually, it's not. Believe it or not, the wings are good, but like also there's a weird. It's kind of like. Got this like scummy barness to it.
You like that? You like that, Quinn, huh?
Yeah, it just has a weird way to it, but it's not. At the same time, because of what it is, it doesn't feel dangerous. There's like no danger involved, so it's got this like I can get the cruddy bar effect, but not feel like I'm in imminent danger.
Right. Okay.
And I don't know why I enjoy that about it.
So that's what you like about Hooters, the wings and the crud.
Yeah, the crud. I don't know. It's got a vibe. I can't explain it.
Nothing against Hooters, the people that work there or the people that frequent that place. Nothing against it. It is what it is. On the border is another Mexican-style cantina restaurant.
This place is really good.
It can be. It has good margaritas.
Chips are good too.
And the chips and salsa are good.
They fill the Chi-Chi's void to me.
Yeah, that's the one good thing about On the Border by us over here.
They absolutely fill that void.
They hit that same market there, that Mexican Tex-Mex style.
I would say their chips might rival Chi-Chi's.
I have...
They may.
Chi-Chi's. Yeah, you're right. And what about, you mentioned them earlier, how about the Cheesecake Factory? Thoughts, Quinn?
You could get anything ever that was ever food in existence.
Can you get cheesecake?
Plus cheesecake,
okay,
yes. Plus an extensive dessert menu that is I think what Cheesecake Factory does best is variety.
Their menu is huge. I think it's about 4 feet long.
I always thought growing up that the diner had the most variety, and then I went to a Cheesecake Factory, and I was like, what even the hell is going on here? Like, it's like a book, the menu. It's like you have to like study it, right? There's just so much stuff you can get at the cheesecake, and it's got like a bigness about the design of these places, like the
big ceiling.
The ceiling
high
is like
ceilings.
Super high ceiling, and it almost feels like you're dining in like a train station or something, because it's just like
Grand Central.
Yeah, it's like got that vibe to it. It's like super weird.
I agree with you. My problem with the Cheesecake Factory is that it's always crowded anytime I want to go, and they don't take reservations.
I'll say this: it's crowded, but because of the bigness of the place and the booths are huge, once you're sitting down, doesn't it weirdly feel private? And I can't explain how that effect works. I don't understand it there.
There's always a wait anytime I want to go, which is rarely. But we have a gift card. My wife and I have a gift card that we've been trying to use for, I think, 3 years. But anytime that we've been in the vicinity of the Cheesecake Factory, a 40-minute wait. And now we got a newborn, so we ain't going anytime soon.
Let me ask, can you...
yes.
Do they do any kind of, you go there and you can do something else kind of situation? Or like that?
Yeah, but I'm hungry.
I understand that.
I don't want to wait 45 minutes and walk around the mall.
There's also a mall adjacent. I was just going to say, just take the stroller and go.
Take the stroller and go.
Poke around.
Why don't you try that and see how much fun it is, Quinn?
It's just a suggestion.
Okay. It's actually not a bad one.
Yeah.
Overall, listen, there's so many more restaurants here.
Oh, there's probably some we're missing.
And you know what? I'm fine missing a lot of them because I want you guys to bring up other ones that meant a lot to you that you really liked, maybe that aren't in business anymore or are. But speaking of the business overall of casual dining, it was booming with all these places we're talking about in the 70s, in the 80s, and the 90s.
And you can see the remnants of that because there's tons of them left over.
Still tons of them left over. And then a couple of factors started to put a dent into the armor here. One of them was in the 90s and into the 2000s especially, there were the health-conscious movements that started.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a bad thing,
but that's always the ups and downs, and the fast food industry has been dealing with that for years too, right?
Yeah, and they adapted to the best of their ability. But the perception started to come about that these casual dining places are just high calorie, low nutrition fat bombs, basically, that are not providing anything good. And when the public has that hammered into them long enough, they believe it, whether it's true or not. But it's also an expensive business model. If you think about what's required to run even one of these restaurants in terms of your wait staff, all of your supply chain, all of your overhead, all of your costs, your rent.
And it's food that's not super duper cheap like fast food.
Correct.
But you have to order in the quantity of fast food.
Yeah, you need to have bulk, right?
Yeah.
And then you have people telling you, well, don't go here. It's not healthy. That starts to erode at your bottom line.
They probably get hit before the fast food place because the fast food places just have a mass of people, way more than these places.
Yeah, and the need that they fill is less appetite and more convenience fast food.
Yeah.
It's less appetite based. Believe it or not, casual dining, the market segment declined all throughout the 21st century.
That's a shame because I do think these offer a good service.
Well, they do.
Ultimately,
Quinn.
I think they're a net positive as far as eating variety and stuff like that.
I totally agree with you. One of the problems too that consumers started to realize is there's too many choices.
That's true.
And if you're in an area of the suburbs where you have so many different options, it does dilute. It just you develop less brand loyalty that way.
I mean, let's just for 2 seconds go over what we have in our vicinity, right?
Yeah,
go ahead. If you think about living where we live and realizing that this is an insane amount of variety, right?
And this isn't unique either.
We have an Olive Garden. We have a Carrabba's.
Red Lobster.
We have a Bonefish, a Red Lobster,
Denny's.
a Houlihan's, a Denny's. IHOP, Perkins.
Applebee's. Fridays.
Chili's.
2 Chili's, actually.
Yeah, 2 Chili's.
That's all within 8 minutes of each other.
And then on top of it, we have a small city next to us that has a ton of eating variety.
Yep.
And then say we want to go down to Freehold or, all these other towns. Or say if we're really feeling fancy, we can go to New York City.
Or Philadelphia.
Yeah. And then on top of that, all the little, on the side highways, all these other little tiny eateries that maybe you're in the mood for.
Yep.
So
choices.
The choice in an area like us, it's stiff competition.
It is.
It's totally stiff competition.
Right.
And so these places actually definitely have a harder time making it. The common person, they probably in the other locations, they get repeat customers, but the places by us probably don't get repeat.
Right.
Or if
you try everything.
Or their repeat customers come in once a year.
Yeah.
Because they're doing all the other restaurants every other weekend, right?
100%. It's a far cry from even 25 years ago in the 90s or 30 years ago in the 90s where you might have 3 choices nearby. All of a sudden, now there's 20 choices nearby for a lot of places, not just us in Jersey. That's one of the factors, but also the emergence of fast casual, like we mentioned at the top of the show. This really started to come to the forefront in the late 90s, early 2000s, with Subway being one of the most prominent. And some other ones are Panera, Smashburger, Five Guys, Chipotle, Sbarro. Fast casual is defined as better than fast food and faster than casual.
Yeah.
It literally sits in between the two.
Yeah. And then you got something like Shake Shack where it's premium fast.
Chick-fil-A and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
And the idea here is that you get the fast food wait time, which is key because if people are hungry and they just want to eat, they don't want to wait.
But then you tell them you can get that casual dining quality, which is a step above the fast food quality, but at the fast food speed.
And sometimes only a little bit more price.
Which was really only in the domain of the diner.
Correct.
Before that, right?
The food is higher quality than fast food. The atmosphere is higher quality. If you ever walk into a Smashburger, I mean, you're getting a better product, I guess.
It's so much better
than than McDonald's.
Yeah, the burgers at Smashburger are really, really good.
And the perception has become over these last maybe 15, 20 years by the key demographics that casual dining restaurants are outdated in terms of their menus and their decor. They are not trendy, and you're not really getting a lot of value for what you're spending, and the food isn't particularly of high quality, whereas the perception for the fast casual restaurants is that you're getting faster service, you're getting it at lower cost, it's a trendier place, it's more adaptable, and it's healthier.
Yeah, but those are also, too, because they're still a relatively new concept, no?
New enough,
that
yeah,
they could
within 20
become
years.
untrendy.
100%.
For all we know, it could become trendy again to go have dinner at Applebee's.
Yeah,
it could just that's just what's fashionable. That just moves around.
And it'll be interesting to watch how that goes on over the next 20 years. But what's interesting, too, is that even as consumer spending has gone up over the last decade, spending on casual dining has still gone down. So people are spending their money. They're just spending it at other places. And I think the pandemic that we had, you might have heard of it, certainly expedited a lot of these problems, exacerbated them. But the problems had already been there. I've been losing money the whole 21st century because it's become easier to just go to like Smashburger if you quickly want to eat, or just get something from DoorDash.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell you want.
And I already see it. The casual dining places are getting in on the delivery.
Yeah, they have to.
They're noticing that the pandemic opened their eyes. Like they were like,
oh, it changed everything for people.
Like more people will eat at Chili's if they can just press a button on their phone and they can get that Mexican street corn or that steak dinner or something delivered right to their door.
Exactly.
You know, there's all these places. I feel like the entire food industry discovered that during
they had to,
and it was
survival.
I don't see how they're not booming a little bit from that, right? Because I mean, them all opening up to that was a huge boon.
It was, and putting in outdoor dining at places that previously hadn't had it was another big deal.
And what's great, you know what's great about that is now that the pandemic's over, now they have an outdoor dining area, and they say, they kept it. They built it out of necessity, but now they have more space.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. So I mean, we'll have to see what develops here. We're not here to offer answers on the future, obviously, or speculate. But I do think that casual dining places, the chains, if you will, they have their place. They are comforting. There's brand identification, and to this day, like, I could still say, all right, well, maybe I'm just in the mood to go to friggin' Fridays, and I haven't been there in however long, and I'll go, and that's okay. But we want to hear your memories of eating out, especially as a kid, because I think a lot of childhood memories tie back to food.
Yeah.
A lot of kids remember the first time they went out to dinner, or what restaurant, the first time they went to a restaurant or ate a certain thing, or whatever the case may be. Because what we do here is we reminisce, right, Michael Quinn?
Yes.
And maybe you're a big fan of the Red Lobster, like
it's
Michael
Quinn. Great location. You need to. More people need to give the Red Lobster a chance,
or perhaps the Olive Garden. You know, whatever the case may be, we want to hear from you guys about your favorite and unfavorite casual dining places. Let us know what we didn't talk about. Let us know what we did, and if you worked at one of these places, we definitely want to hear from you. We want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. One way or another, though, Quinn, we will be back next week for something completely unbelievably different.
Very different.
Very different. But until that time, please be sure to follow us on Twitter at AWM Podcast. Join our Facebook group. And one way or another, we hope you had a nice dining experience with us here. Until next week, I'm Joe Murata, and that's Michael Quinn. And we will see you next week.
See ya.
Like what you heard? Be sure to leave a review and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We will see you next week.